The US dollar is falling dramatically. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my current outlook with the recent price action that we've seen on the US dollar, as well as some upcoming news that could seriously shake investors one way or the other. So with that said, let's get into it. Okay, so currently the US dollar currency index here, the DXY, is selling off pretty dramatically. And if you actually remember yesterday's video, I talked about how we could potentially see a bit of a bounce here. 38.2% retracement came into play, looked like we had some support here looking left, and then of course it all went to trash. And sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes you have an idea in markets and it just doesn't play out. But again, this was based on, pullbacks, nice little upward trend, but it seems like market structure here has actually made a little bit of a breakthrough to the downside. Let's make a point for the bearish case in terms of price action. You can actually see that area here on the trend line never really held. You can see, depending on how you drew this trend line, if you drew it like this with the wick low, still kind of failed out at that level that we discussed yesterday. So the point is, there was some downward pressure that seems to still be prevalent in markets. Now you may be asking, Nick, isn't it time to just double down and triple down and buy a ton more on the US dollar? Well, although I am bullish on the dollar, I really would like to see some momentum come back into the market before I jump to a whole bunch of conclusions on the US dollar. Now, the reason I say that is because, again, we've seen to have changed directions here. We've seen to have put in enough momentum here, erasing all of that bullish pressure in the short term in terms of technical analysis, showing us that, yeah, there may be some pullback opportunities. We've just got to be cautious that this thing doesn't just continue to dump and dump and dump, especially when we have big news around the corner. Speaking of which, we have NFP on Friday. Today is Wednesday, which is, a couple trading days away, but it could have some huge impacts on some of the individual currency pairs. Here's euro dollar, where I absolutely got smoked, taken out to the back, and, kind of beat up on this one because I shorted here, thinking that, we had some structure looking left, things looked pretty good there. And, according to my trading plan, there was nothing wrong with me taking these trades. It's just that sometimes markets do some crazy stuff. So I took a small stop loss there of 30 pips. Then I tried the next day to pick up a new short position after some rejection. Sure enough, closing out for a loss again after price rallied further against me. So yeah, I'm a little down bad when it comes to Euro USD this week, but it's okay. I only lost about 60 pips and my stop loss was relatively tight with a small position size. So there's no catastrophic damage that we can't recover with a good trade around the corner. So that's kind of the mindset that you've got to take, at least. That's how I'm getting through the week, if you will. But anyways, as we pull back here, I do like the idea of looking for some short side action on euro dollar. But I'm not going to rush to conclusions here, and I'm not just going to keep biling into a losing idea. What I'm going to look for is rejection at one of these levels, the 61.8 or the 50% level. If we start to see some rejection, which it seems we're trying to do at the 50%, then I think that we have the potential to maybe start making our way back down into the right direction, with targets being here at this target number 1 structure here. This is the first level of interest for me, but then target number 2, still longer term, looking for that move back down to 1.1135, let's call it, just around that previous low, right? So that's kind of my outlook on Euro USD. Let's also talk a little bit about gold, because actually gold is an interesting pair today. We talked about this on stream, and I discussed the idea that short term, I think that gold may have a little bit of juice left on the trade. We may see this thing, bouncing off of support today on the 1 hour chart. We actually pulled this up on the 30-minute chart on stream. So let's discuss that. So 30-minute chart, retest of structure, right? Broken out, retesting, looking a little strong here this morning. And my idea here is short term that we could see a nice move right on up to like 1812. From 1812, however, I think that the dollar starts kicking back in and that we could see some sell pressure come back into play up there at resistance here marked on the chart. So if price makes its way up there, let's go back to the 4-hour chart here. 4-hour view tells us, okay, big swing to the downside, pulling back as we near that 38.2% retracement again and up into that resistance point. Somewhere around this area, in my mind, is more on the short side and favors the bears. Now, again, broken structure here to the downside, lower lows here, but still sitting at support. The idea here being, let's talk about some targets if this trade were to come into play. Let's say we were to look at shorts like this with stop loss above structure, and where could we target? Well, here's the 2 levels that I think are most interesting. Number 1 is this pivotal spot where we found some bulls, right? So if the bulls, hold their own, maybe that's an area to target as stop number one. So price pops up into that level. You're looking at something like this with a potentially bigger target down here at 1787. By the way, why do I target more than one level on the chart? Well, it's because sometimes, you may be right about a level, but things can happen in the markets. So sometimes people will take partial profits. What I personally do is I'll use these levels as points to start trailing my stop and to move stops into break even or even into profit. So big key area to me would be a move back down to 1800 flat, and maybe even if we can break through that, back down to the previous low. And then we'll have to discuss further action if all of this starts to play out there on gold. So a couple ideas there for you should we poke up into 1812. Now please remember, these are just ideas, these are just opinions, this is not financial advice, and I always encourage anybody who's watching these videos, don't copy people, don't try and copy signals, don't copy people on YouTube. All that stuff is, it misses the full picture of trading. You need to manage your own risk, you need to consider your own financial situation. What are you willing to lose? What are you willing to position your size, take as a position size, right? That sort of stuff is something that people can't answer for you. You kind of have to make up your own decision. So anyways, I do like gold potentially as it pokes up into that level as maybe some short-term pressure to the downside there. And people have been asking me a little bit about dollar yen. Quick touch on dollar yen. I think structure actually kind of failed out here. We had this 38.2 to 50% zone. I actually was very bullish on the pair here. I never ended up taking that trade. However, now that we've broken that zone, I'm not really interested in jumping into anything right now, especially with kind of a lower high here on the higher time frames. I still think this thing is bullish based on my fundamental analysis on a stronger US dollar based on the Fed's rate hike situation. However, it may take some time to play out, and I'm waiting cautiously and patiently for some signs of momentum to come back in. I'm happy to get a break and retest entry rather than try and catch the low, right? So targets being back at the previous top there, as well as the overall high longer term. Now, I did say in the title that I would talk about a position that I am currently in. So here's my pound Aussie trade. I am currently long on pound Aussie. Yes, it has nothing to do with the dollar. Someone asked me yesterday, Nick, do you trade anything outside of the dollar? And the answer is yes, but not often. But just kidding. But recently, with the dollar kind of selling off like it is, I'm just waiting for a little bit of a bottoming to form on the dollar before I jump into more trades. And I picked up pound Aussie as I like this thing to the long side for the time being. So a couple targets in mind. So my reasoning for the trade here, we had consolidation, right? Here. And after we broke out significantly to the upside and we started retesting, I do like the idea of picking up longs on that retest. So I decided to take that trade after we got a little bit of support structure come in, a little wicking there on the bottom. Decided to pick up the trade with my stop below yesterday's low here. So if price fails out completely and starts heading back the other direction, I'll stop out there for a loss if I have to. Floating $150 on the trade for now. We'll see what it's like by the time you guys see it. Maybe it's all the way down on my stop loss, or hey, maybe we're headed up to target number one. So that's kind of my thoughts on pound Aussie. And my thoughts on the dollar overall. The thing with the dollar right now is, as long as there's just absolute sell pressure like this, I'm just cautious, right? If we start to see this thing bottom, which it seems like it's trying to, watch to see how this candle closes on the 4-hour and maybe today's daily candle to see if we can get some signs of bulls that are still alive. And maybe from there, you start seeing a rise and you can start looking for maybe something like this, break retest. I'm more comfortable taking those sort of trades anyways. I'm not a big fan of trying to catch the low. And so when the dollar is dropping dramatically, I'm going to try and stay cautious with it. Despite taking a couple losses earlier this week, I'm fairly confident that we'll just catch some new trades that could hopefully pay for all of it and more. That's kind of the idea behind my trading. I take small losses all the time with the occasional big trade that kind of bails me out. It's not for everybody. I understand that. And sometimes people get frustrated with my trading style because, again, the thing is, right, even with my pound Aussie trade, my stop loss is fairly tight and I'm targeting a good distance away before I start really racking in any profit. So that doesn't happen too often. It's kind of rare that you get moves like this in the market, and pretending that you know when they're going to happen all the time is a little bit of silly. The thing is, trading is somewhat unpredictable. It can be volatile. It's more about managing your risk and taking the trades that your strategy tells you to trade. So that's kind of my approach there on pound Aussie. If you guys want to see all the trades that I'm taking in real time, by the way, let me show you what this trade alert actually looks like. Every time I take a trade, I share it within our private Discord channel, which is linked down below in the description. So every time I take a trade, here's my, let's scroll to the current. So here's my pound Aussie trade. I'm risking 60 pips on this move right now, and my entry, my stop loss, all of that is shared with members. So full breakdown from a technical analysis and a fundamental analysis standpoint. I'm bullish on the Bank of England right now, basically. Despite a hawkish report recently from the RBA, I still believe them to be behind the curve compared to the Bank of England when it comes to monetary policy. And on Thursday, we have monetary policy news from the Bank of England, and I believe that it should remain more hawkish than Aussie. So we have some news coming out for the pound, which I still believe to be a possible strong catalyst for the pound. And anyways, that's why I have stop losses on my trade in case I'm wrong. So that's the idea. That's the trade that I'm currently in. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If this was helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, do me a favor, hit the like button down below, subscribe if you're new, and come back and join us for more videos in the future. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching today's video. There are more videos available on our channel here and here, so go ahead and click into that for some more free trading content. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you back next time.